We live, Joey?
We're live.
Oh, here we are. Well, welcome everybody. We want to thank you to our session here on what does it take to be the right leader at the right time or at that point in time. And this is something that the panelists here all know all too well about. They live it every day. They live that dream every day. It's about being in that pressure cooker when the transformation's on, things are going awry. And at that very instant, at that moment in time, you got to be that leader, step it up and make it happen. And how do you do that with your team? So that's what we're all about today. What I'd like to do is start out by introducing you to our first panelist, Mr. Craig Strong, a CIO. Craig, you want to tell us about yourself?
Yes, sir. Actually, CTO of Aerial Partners. No worries. CTO, CIO. So Aerial Partners is a small digital services company. We're based in Times Square, New York City. And we work with federal agencies, mayoral agencies like NYPD, as well as commercial organizations. And what I really focus on day to day are new developments in business agility. How do we get organizational agility? I am a certified trainer and coach for Kanban, SAFe, flight level, Scrum, all the things. And I have about 20, 25 years plus experience in IT. Started out at Project Athena during my undergraduate studies at MIT. A long time ago. So I do teach private and public classes and all of those topics, as well as human-centered design. And my particular focus right now, very interesting, is teaching leaders and executives about how they can enable organizational agility. What's their place in an agile organization? How does their role change, their responsibilities change? So currently working with New York Life to help them kick off their organizational, their improvement goals. And I also, last but not least, led a large multi-year transformation for a large criminal justice federal agency, will remain unnamed, from waterfall cycles to waterfall and manual intensive processes to agile, DevOps, and cloud. Thank you.
Nice.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And then we have our second panelist here, Dr. Ken Russell. Ken?
Hey, folks. Nice to see you. I'm Ken Russell, and I am the Chief Information and Innovation Officer for an organization called the New College Institute. And we are a state agency in the Commonwealth of Virginia in the U.S. Very interesting route for me to get here. What I do on a daily basis is I help promote innovation and technology capability throughout the Commonwealth, particularly with higher education learning centers, universities, colleges, things like that. My background, I was an early developer of internet training and internet portals and things like that, intranet portals. Worked for the banks. I was at one time, I was the head of enterprise architecture for Bank of America. I worked for one of the large energy companies in North America called Duke Energy in their office of the CIO. I helped build a large research campus in North Carolina called the North Carolina Research Campus, where we kind of blended all aspects of human health, agriculture, and nutrition. So I've had a pretty interesting career. And then I went over to Cisco for several years. So I don't know, maybe I ruined it, but I had a really great time at Cisco with a lot of innovation there, a lot of good people. I headed up the embedded EA program for a while. And then when I left Cisco, I was head of the intellectual capital transformation group, which is just a fancy way of saying, how do we deal with the 5 generations of that are existing together in the workforce at the same time? So a lot of what I do now, particularly in the Commonwealth of Virginia, is take all of those skills that I've learned, both technology and organizational, and help organizations kind of get ready to do whatever is next. And right now, as you can imagine, for the last 6 months, nothing has been hotter than AI. So I've been working a lot with large language models and things like that. So happy to be here, John and Craig. Just looking forward to the conversation.
All right, great. And for our audience out there, members, again, thank you for being here. What we'd like to do is in your session chat, if you have questions as our panelists are talking, or something that comes to mind with you about leadership and these situations and stuff, please feel free to put your questions in the session. And then at the end, we'll circle back and we'll see how many of those we can answer. So to kick us off and get us going here, Ken, as a leader, Can you tell us more about how you have leveraged partnerships to help spark the innovation and accelerate the transformation for the learning opportunities?
Oh, absolutely. I talk a lot about the difference between a partner and a vendor, and particularly when do you use which one, right? So, a lot of times, especially in a leadership position, you tend to, and I've heard this term a lot. I don't know if it's an internationally translated term, but you squeeze the vendor to get what you want. That is to find a way to get more than they want to give. That's never a winning opportunity. So what you need to figure out is how do you turn those vendor relationships into partner relationships, specifically where they are bidirectional. You want something from them, they want something from you. And it's best to build those up straight away. And I don't mean a golf tournament once a year or, a lunch or a dinner every couple of months. I'm talking about, getting another organization that wants to partner with you involved in your everyday. Because what happens is when you have a crisis, and you do, it happens all the time. Who do you want to call? You want to call a vendor at 3 o'clock in the morning, or do you want to call a partner who really cares about what you are going through and wants to be part of the solution? Stories after stories of where partners emerged where we thought vendors existed, and vendors emerged where we thought partners existed. So it takes time. It takes a lot of intent, but if you can create a partner relationship, please do. Hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah. And one thing,
what do you think, Craig?
Oh, go ahead, Craig. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like just to add to that some specific examples as absolutely in line with what Ken is referring to. So, as a we do work with agencies like Ken's as a vendor, and we have definitely experienced that, and but we've also, as a coach and trainer, I'm sometimes working with other organizations, and sometimes in my training classes I'll have multiple different folks there that are working with their vendors. And in the training classes that I teach, I'm often talking about Agile and Kanban and things like that. And what I've observed is that we're really in a golden age when it comes to Agile tools. And one of the silver linings of the pandemic is that the tools have gotten so much better. And it's not even just that they've gotten better; they're really responsive. I mean, it seems to have sort of survival of the fittest out there. So, as a coach, I'm really excited that I've been able to develop some real close partnerships with some of the tool vendors out there, and they've actually, really taking the feedback and directly you can see that in their roadmap and in the features that they're starting to produce, and so I'm literally able to be in a training class and then talk to, say, Bank of Mauritius or Tokyo Marine Insurance Company, or all these different, folks from these large organizations saying, well, I really want to, if I wish I could do this. Talk to a vendor of a Kanban software, and within a month or two, that feature is there. So it's pretty exciting. We're in a new, you couldn't even think about anything like that in the past. Something I would never happen, but that kind of responsiveness, it's amazing. It's really happening now. And that's
a really great point about partnerships and Kanban, for example. Just a real quick, real life example. I had the pleasure of working with a large airplane manufacturer here in the U.S., and they would have morning stand-ups, right? They would have their Kanban board, they have it at 7:30 in the morning. So all the employees were there because they were getting paid, but only the partners, the real partners that wanted to be part of the solution, were there at 7:30 in the morning, walking through the stand-up and walking through that board. And you figured out very quickly who the partners were and who the vendors were.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to cap on, feed off of both or build upon both of you guys is, if you think of DASA principle number 3, end-to-end responsibility, that's one of the things we talked about was the ecosystem of your customer, end-to-end. Who's all in that? And that's just not your customer that you're trying to flow value to. it's everybody in that ecosystem, all the partners, the relationships, and all that. So that's how I like to tie it in that way. Is when I work with my clients, we tie in that how that principle falls in exactly what you guys are talking about. So let's go ahead and move on, which is going to be Craig. How do we tie technology and IT initiatives to business objectives or outcomes?
Indeed, this is the question, isn't it? So nearly everybody today is talking about how we can tie our IT initiatives more closely to our business objectives or outcomes. But I've rarely seen it, unfortunately, done sort of methodically, really, really effectively. And what do we see? We see business case is drawn up as part of the governance process to justify a new project or new initiative. And then we hardly ever mention that again, right? And we talk to our team members. Maybe there's 100 people on the engineering team. Most of them have never even seen it. They've never even seen the business case. So in order to really fix this, there are, in my opinion, there are 4 things we've got to look at. So the first one is the 3 gaps, and then there's the elephant in the room. So the 3 gaps are the knowledge gap, the alignment gap, and the effects gap. So the knowledge gap is our plans are imperfect because we lack perfect knowledge of our own capabilities as well as the competitive situation, right? We can never know everything. And some organizations will get caught in sort of analysis paralysis of constantly trying to get more information. I can't make a decision yet because I need more information. So that's the knowledge gap. Second one is the alignment gap. So our actions are not always per plan because it's difficult to get everyone aligned. Everyone has their own perspective, their own things they're working on. So it's how do you get that alignment while preserving autonomy, balancing autonomy and alignment. Third one is the effects gap. So the effects of our actions may not be the ones we wanted because the environment is nonlinear, right? Their competitors are doing their own thing. The economy is doing something else. So just because the strategy says X and we do, and we should do this action, it may not necessarily enable our strategy the way we think. So those 3 gaps, so bridging those 3 gaps are important to connect strategy to operations. But the elephant in the room is what I like to call the whirlwind. And the whirlwind is all the day-to-day stuff. When people, when the executives say, well, why aren't you executing according to strategy? It's like, well, I've got, this meeting and this customer screaming and this thing's on fire. And it's all the stuff we have to do to keep the lights on. And we can't stop doing that. We've got to do that. Everyone's already 100% busy. So so how do we solve these problems? Well, the thinking models and frameworks that I've seen do the best job of that. I really like some of the new ones that are emerging, like enterprise Kanban, flight levels, and the 4 disciplines of execution. And to boil those down, what they really talk about is, first of all, setting up a visualization at the strategy level so that it's not just a deck, it's not just a PowerPoint, it's actually a real visualization that we can see and that team members will actually view on a regular basis and can update. That's one thing. The other thing is that we take these big objectives and we break them down into outcomes, KPIs, that kind of stuff, OKRs. But so you'd want to have 3 timeframes: long-term, medium-term, and short-term. And just that discipline of creating those OKRs at those levels is a great discipline. And that will, and you engage the organization in doing that and updating that. Of course, we need our metrics to see how we're doing there. And then the last thing is to reduce the noise. And what I really like how the 4 disciplines of execution, which they call 4DX, how they do this. They basically say, make sure you make progress on at least one strategic objective every time you meet, which should be weekly. So that every week you're saying, what did you do to advance us towards this strategic goal? So all the other stuff that you did, all the day-to-day stuff, that's all fine. But what is the one thing you did? So you can't be chasing 20 strategic objectives. You got to narrow it down to one. So it's that focus. So if we get the visualization and getting the organization involved and talking about it and focusing in. That's what will connect strategy to operations.
I think you're right, Craig. I mean, you speak a lot about discipline, and I think that's very key to the DevOps principles of mind. Right? I mean, it reminds me of an organization architecture definition. We talk about all kinds of enterprise architecture. We talk about, data, we talk about application, but we rarely talk about the organization architecture, which is basically three simple things. It's history of the organization, the culture of the organization, and here's the most important, the tolerance of that organization for change. What is that? How do you measure that? How do you consider that? So your outcomes, your approach, your gaps, your elephant in the room, all that perfect. Well done.
Nice. Yeah, bringing up a lot of memories. Yeah, and I hope our audience is they're probably resonating with some you guys are saying. So let's do this. So I think this is a great lead in for our next question. And I know, Craig, you had an example to kick us off on, which is, what is an example of a successful or even a failing transformation? Meaning, why did that transformation succeed or fail? And what were the lessons learned?
Thank you. Yes. So as a CTO, I wear many hats. One of them is as an agile coach. So as a coach, I have been involved or seen many failed and successful transformations in large organizations. Sort of sometimes we get together with other coaches over beers and talk about them. So one that I observed as a failed organization, I'd like to talk about, because I think the lessons learned are very interesting. So this is for a very large streaming media company here in New York City. We have a lot of them. So senior leadership announced that they were going to start a transformation in order to improve our alignment. And this is in the digital products division. So what did they do? Well, they immediately said, well, we're going to adopt Scaled Agile framework. They picked a framework. They said, so we're going to define some value streams, and we'll place all the teams in these different value streams. They created some high-level objectives. They subdivided them up, and then they said each team should link their current work to say, well, what objective, what piece of chunk of work is everything you're doing? What is it related to? So sort of this top-down planning, and then the teams were expected to align by connecting what they were doing to these different chunks. And we'd get together quarterly for 2 days of planning, and what could go wrong? So alas, there was a significant resistance, which only built over time. The end result was that, unfortunately, after about 6 to 9 months, it was sort of quietly abandoned. But why is that? Why was that? So first of all, the objectives, like why are we doing this? Those were never really clearly defined. It was just, we're going to do this transformation. We're going to use SAFe. It was never really clear, like, what problems were we trying to solve? So everyone's saying, like, things are going fine. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we disrupting this? So there has to be communication. Like, what is the reason? What are we trying to do? And it was really never communicated. It was just, we have to do this. So the second one was that it was imposed from on high. The couple of senior leaders, they're probably, for the best of intentions, they're probably saying, let's not disrupt the teams. Let's just do this stuff, and so they can keep working. And then, but the problem is you have to engage people. They have to be part of the plan, right? So they basically just sort of created this big plan and subdivided these chunks of work, and then just imposed them on everyone. And the other thing is that all the practices were introduced wholesale. So it's just, okay, let's do all this stuff. There was no incremental, like, we didn't become agile in an agile way. It's like, it was literally, we became agile in a waterfall way. It's just a ka-chunk, it's just not a good way to do that. And last but not least, there's a lot of lessons learned, but last one I'll mention briefly is the culture. In this particular organization, the engineering culture was extremely mature. So all of the teams were automated testing and very high quality, very high levels of quality. So they already had their work, and not all of their work, there were significant new, in fact, new ideas would come from these teams a lot. So, having everything go top down just wasn't the right fit for an organization like this. So it really wasn't, it didn't fit the culture of the organization. So those are some lessons learned from this failed transformation.
Well, I'm looking at our time. We got about 4.5 minutes left to the session, and I didn't see any questions posted in the session. So I'd like to do is, Ken, I'd like you to give a chance to answer the same question. What failing transformation? If you give us an example. And one thing I want to put in here is that what I'm seeing out there is a lot of leaders. They feel, they know, they want to use their intuition, their gut feelings. They know what the right thing is to do, but it's so hard to do. And do they have the confidence and courage, what I call the 2 C's, that they can trust in themselves and their leadership? And will they be, is it okay for them to do the right thing and what they believe is the right thing? So I'd like to hand it over, and, if you can take a couple minutes here and share one of those with one of your experiences with us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and like Craig, there's wide and varied experiences, but I'll kind of create an amalgam for you and just a few ideas here, kind of a quick thoughts or ideas to share, that sort of thing. And one speaks to the title of this session. The right leader at the right time. What does it take? Because the thing is, a good leader in a good environment, whether that's an economic environment or a technology environment, they're just sort of, as Cotter would say, kind of managers, just kind of letting it roll and doing that thing. But they're only tested when something goes wrong or they're disoriented, right? And something really forces them to change. Maybe someone is stealing from the organization. Maybe someone is, leaving the organization, or maybe there's a disruptive technology. All sorts of things can cause a leader to be tested. And I think that's important. And I think the lesson I can give you from all the things that I've done in my career, treat your executive, your chief executive, your leader, your team leader, anybody else, your leader, treat them as you would your pen test. Or as your incident response or your disaster recovery. Test that person's capability. The best way that I've seen to do that, of course, is with incident response planning, business continuity planning, succession planning, but also, again, it's okay to treat the senior executive as if they are a critical system and treat them as such. So there's your one example there. Also, be careful of the culture of no. And by that, I mean, when you work with an organization and someone does this to you and says no, stop that. Don't do that. Also, it's hard to be strategic. As Craig was talking about, it's hard to be strategic when you're careening. So when things are tumbling, it's hard. I talk a lot about the above the fray kind of thing. Make sure that you have the ability to lift your head up and see the organization if you're the leader. Try not to get in the weeds. And if you toss people in the weeds to help you fix things, make sure they've got a rope so you can pull them back out. And then finally, invest in that community. Invest in your community that you've been developing. Because as an individual, you kind of know what's right. And this goes to the idea of your gut feeling. And we talk a lot about intuition, and the idea that intuition is both innate and informed, folks. You're born with some of that, but your experience informs your ability to make a decision, or what we call a gut decision. I like to call it the informed gut. That your experiences help you make those gut decisions. It's not just something you're born with. So have the experiences, learn from others, have a good mentor relationship. Even if you are the senior executive, have a good mentor relationship, and use that informed gut to make great decisions.
All right, thank you. All right, so we just have under a minute left. So with that, I just want to say thank you again to our audience for being here. I hope that our panelists has helped you be that right leader at the right time, and that you guys have the courage and commitment to step up and follow your intuition, your innate and informed self. And, and again, any closing comments, Craig or Ken, before we wrap up?
One quick thing. So in my experience, a great leader has 3 aspects that they so first one is leadership, the inspiring people, explaining the why, making sure people understand why they're doing what they're doing, and inspire people to follow. Second one is manager, dealing with conflict, organization, effective processes, that kind of stuff. And the third one is command, the ability to make effective decisions. So if you're effective at all those 3 aspects, you'll be an effective leader.
Totally agree.
All right, Joey, I think we're done here. We'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for the audience as well.
Thank you.